Hi there, and welcome back to Political Chit Chat, which is what I'm calling this show today, but probably tomorrow I'll call it something else. I'm Sue Mosley, and I'm here with my partner, Shelia Arnett, and I think I want to call the show Coffee and Conversation. What's your thoughts on that?
We could.
I don't know. We still don't have a name. We'll just still not call it anything. But Sheila, it's the day after Election Day. The city of Ocala city council races and mayor race are done, sort of, kind of.
Sort of, kind of.
And let's wrap them up. What's your thoughts? How are you after yesterday? It's a long day.
It was a long day. I don't know about you. I was exhausted. I have done this, multiple times as a candidate. It is more fun not as the candidate.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But I was exhausted.
I don't know. I was stressed out of my mind yesterday, and I think at some point that with usually when results come in, it's not a big deal for me, but I think I had one foot over the ledge of the Hilton Garden Inn and was getting ready to plunge myself to the sidewalk when my boss from Tallahassee called me and said, "Hey, congratulations." I was like, "On what?"
Well, and I guess you're talking about the district.
The last ditch of the dump. I missed the last.
And I missed it too. We were in a room with them waiting for the mayor, and so there was a screen up there, but you could only see like the first two races, and so I would look on my phone and I would go update it so everybody else in the room could see, and Lori Martin Gregory was third. If a candidate doesn't win 50% plus one vote, then the top two go into a runoff, which is November the 16th, 8 weeks away.
Okay.
And
yeah, Barbara Feitos and Kristen Dreyer were actually, not really neck and neck, but Lori wasn't in the first top two, and I was watching it on my phone. I was in a different room than you were, and it was updating, but I thought all precincts had reported, and my phone, I was getting texts, I was getting phone calls, so every time I'd get something, I'd lose the internet, and so I just thought it was over and was getting ready to leave. And
it was 16 of 19 precincts were in, and so I updated it and I said, okay, so I was up there scrolling for everyone, and I'm like screaming, I'm like, what? And everybody in the room was like, what? And so I went out and found Lori, and we were just so excited.
Well, and
those last three precincts.
Barry Mansfield, they were neck and neck, and
at one point in the night, they were separated by two votes.
Two votes. Well, it started out, I want to say 11 votes, and Brent was in the lead. Brent Molliver was in the lead, and it didn't look good for Barry. Now, Kent, from the first dump of the votes and the vote by mails that were turned in, Kent was the huge victor immediately. So there was never any contest in that race. Everybody, all the people that do political chatter and speculation thought that was going to be a very, very tight race. We did here as well.
Yes.
And that's one of the things I want to talk about today is the, what actually might have won these races for candidates, because a lot of the people spent a lot of money. A lot of them put out a lot of mailers. A lot of them put up a lot of signs. Some of them didn't put up many signs. Some of them didn't do many mailers. Some did text messages. Some did negative attacks. The Gazette, which has just no political experience whatsoever as far as I'm concerned, did the most unethical thing that any newspapers ever chose to do in Marion County. Even the Ocala Star-Banner, the liberal Ocala Star-Banner, had a policy against literal attacks on a candidate the night before an election.
And I found it very interesting, that article. They were at 4:30 Monday. They were trying to reach out to the candidates, and it said something about this candidate did not immediately call us back for a response.
They were campaigning, Gazette, should you know that on election day, Tuesday, they were trying to interview three of them, Monday for that one.
Monday for that
but
one.
Tuesday also, they were trying to interview them early in the day, and they're out sign waving, they're handing out flyers, they're doing things, the candidates that I worked for, I was like, y'all better be at the polls all day.
Yeah.
All day.
Yeah. People like to see their politicians sweat. They like to see them on that corner. They like to see them the day of the election. And
so what we're looking for the next 8 weeks, we're down to two runoffs. The District 4 District 4 council seat is going into runoff between Kristen Dreyer and Lori Martin Gregory. And the District 3 race is going into runoff with Jay Mosley and Ty Schlichter. So, sorry about that. I probably should have silenced my phone. So that's what we're looking at now, is 2 runoffs. And the big question, I guess, will be, as huge as, now we did have record number of turnout yesterday, 33%, 29%.
25.96%, 9,932 people voted. It was interesting, the table I was sitting at, one guy, Mr. Sapp, that was beside me, he's like, he was working a precinct, and he said people were coming, and the dividing line is apparently across the street from the church that it was at, and he said people were coming over, and they were being told, well, you can't vote. You don't live in the city limits. And I smiled at Mr. Sapp and I said, obviously they've never voted in a city race before, or they would have known that. So there were people there was chatter all day of, I have City of Ocala Electric, why can I not vote? And so there was more chatter, more talk about the
and
city
that just
races
goes back to how uninformed voters are.
Absolutely.
Uninformed voters are, and it's kind of sad because it is your one civic duty. It's why people fought for this country. It's why people fought for these freedoms, and it's such a minor thing to take 10 minutes out of your day and vote, and people just choose not to, or the ones that do choose to because they feel like they want to do their civic duty, but they don't know why or who they're voting for, which is just as equally as bad.
In our current day of social media, go onto your Facebook, if maybe some people don't have Facebook, but go on, you can find a wealth of information
on any
out
website
there.
You can Google is your friend, even if you don't have social media. Just Google, who are the candidates, or when is the city election, or anything along that line. So we did see a historical turnout for the City of Ocala election, first time ever. I have said many times on this show that generally between 4,000 and 6,500 people vote. In this particular case, it was right around 11,000. It wavered between 10 and 11.
9,932 voted.
That was in the mayoral race, but I think total votes, was that the top?
That's all of it.
Okay, so right around 10,000 people voted versus the normal 6,000. So that was great, and I believe that was because of the mayor race, because we did hear a lot at the precincts that I were at that people were basically just coming out to vote for Kent Gwynn, and they didn't really know about the other races. So, and that stands to the candidates that actually were out there, still shaking hands and kissing babies. So, the money.
The money.
Let's talk about
the mayor
money.
race, between the 2 candidates, $228,000 was raised in those 2 races. It was, Manalfa Corey had 488 individual contributors from California, from Michigan, from all over the state of Florida.
Let's talk about that, because, and I ran 2 races, and I have some relatives out of the state, obviously, who sent money here and there to help and be a good family member, or whatever the case. And there's friends and family that want to support you in your endeavors, but that's a lot of people. Why were they donating?
And I think it goes back to the car and some of those things that she's involved with, that people in that movement sent money.
Might want to explain it, and then everybody knows what you're talking about. So,
and I don't remember what it stands for.
Well, it's basically some sort of international civic organization. Is that the way? But it also has some sort of connections to terrorism,
to Hamas, to the Palestinians, and there.
And she's on the board of directors of that.
At I think a local chapter
of the car. Okay. So, she has she has very broad ties, Manalfa Corey anyway, so I guess that's why she had a lot of out-of-state, non-local money contributed to her campaign. But it begs the question, and it begs the question for a lot of these money races, these are not high-paying positions. The mayor's race is actually not really a powerful position. It just oversees, the police department. They don't make a lot of decisions as far as the city goes, so why do,
I don't know. A lot of her. There was a video that she did, and there was a quick snatch or quick grab of a Black Lives Matter. The hands raised in the air. She wanted to change Ocala. You know, and I heard from people on my social media, from people that supported her, she does not want to defund the police. Well, to me, if you want to take money away from sworn officers and our social workers, I mean, that's, and I don't know that I disagree with that, but you cannot send...
You know, there was a lot of controversy around that on Facebook where people were disagreeing that, oh, she didn't say she wanted to send in social workers. I was sitting in a Fraternal Order of Police local meeting where they were interviewing her, and she did say that.
I know.
And the question by the police officers in the audience was posed to her of, okay, so you send the social worker in and the social worker gets shot, then what happens? At what point do you want the police to come in? So there was a lot of controversy that, oh, she didn't say that, she didn't say that. But she indeed said that.
Absolutely.
And I don't have a problem when it's a mental health issue, capacity situation, bringing in a mental health counselor to help the patient or the person in need. But I also think police need to respond first.
Absolutely.
And there should be no gray area of that. There's no reason they can't do them together, not, send in the counselor, then call the police if he gets shot.
Right. When did Brian Litz, when was he? It's got to be 20
Well, they just had the
20
anniversary
years.
of that. I think it was 20 years yesterday.
And he went to...
It was a well-being check.
Went to Pine Run out on 200. The family could not get in touch with this gentleman.
Who was mentally ill and was living alone, and there was concern.
And he walked to the front door, rang the doorbell. The guy opened the door and killed him.
Killed him.
So
yeah.
There were a lot of things. I know I went through some reports this morning. She hired a political consultant out of Philadelphia that when you go onto their LinkedIn and onto their social media, they only deal with outlying groups and the Democratic Party, which was a big red flag for me. And I didn't think she did any mailers because I live in the city. I got not one mailer from Manal, but apparently she did 5.
Wow, and you didn't get any? So,
I got none.
So, there's another good thing, and I've mentioned on the show that I'm a political consultant, and there's several other political consultants in this county that work for agencies. We basically work for agencies out of Tallahassee or Gainesville or wherever with larger political consulting nationwide firms. And, when you use somebody who's not local, and you're dealing with a consulting firm out of Washington, they don't know how to target, and they don't necessarily have the proper data to focus. And that's a good point, because I want to make the point about there used to be in politics the old adage of he with the most money wins, and that absolutely was defunct in this campaign. The Greg Steen versus Jim Hilty campaign is an excellent example of that. Manal outraised Kent, an excellent example of that. Everybody outraised Lori Gregory, and there's an example of that. So it sometimes can be he with the most money wins, but he with the most money, if he isn't the most smart on how he spends his dollars, he's not going to win. And that happened in one race where the person just threw money around and they didn't throw it around properly or effectively. And in a city race where you're only targeting basically 10,000 people, when you're, in the county and you're seeing Facebook ads and you don't live in the city and you're getting the ads for the city candidate, that's a waste of money. I can't vote for you. Your ad is cute, but...
Exactly. And the city of Ocala races, Bellevue does their own race. Each city does their, Dunellen does their own. The target market is so small.
Yeah.
It's so small.
And it'll be horrendously small in the runoff, and we're going to try and focus for the next 8 weeks on encouraging people how critical these 2 runoff seats are, because they truly are. Again, we have 1 incumbent in the race and 3 potential new people. So those are some critical issues now that we have the mayor back. Other than Jim Hilty, who served, he served 4 years ago, so he does have experience. So really we have Ira Bethea and Jim Hilty that are currently in. Who am I missing?
Jim Hilty is not.
Jim got elected. Jim will be in.
Gotcha.
I'm saying Irie, Jim, and Barry Mansfield, who's new. So Barry's new. Jim has had a 4-year hiatus. Irie has only served for 2 years. So the level of experience is what I'm trying to bring out here is is not seasoned.
Correct.
So Jay Mosley, who's still in the race against Ty Schlichter, if Jay gets reelected, then we have a seasoned incumbent that's still there to serve instead of a new 35-year-old who, you know, we're not sure what his agenda is and why he's running. So,
Well, we have questions for sure.
yeah.
So let's talk about the District 4 race for just a moment. So that seat was given up, my brain just...
It was given up by Matt Wardell.
Thank you, by Matt Wardell.
Vacated it early so that it was constituted yesterday as a special election in the District 4 seat, although they teamed it up with the regular election so it wouldn't be an additional election expense at a separate time to the citizens.
Yeah, because each city race is about $50,000.
Yeah.
You know, for the supervisor elections.
When Tyrone Oliver needed to be replaced because they removed him because he had felony charges, and a convicted felon can't run for office, and they thought his charges had been overturned and they weren't. After 35 years, Tyrone had to step down. He never actually got sworn in, I don't think
he did.
And then they had to run a special election 6 weeks later, which cost the taxpayers, I want to say it was like $47,000 just for the election of one person, and that's when Irie Bethea ended up getting elected to that seat.
So it was interesting. So Matt Wardell stepped down early, and so there were 6 people in that District 4 race. The women, there were 3 women, 3 men. There were 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans, even though it is a nonpartisan race. The women got 82% of the vote.
Wow.
And so...
You know, there's a hard thing to say in that, and there's no way for me to say this without sounding crass, and I don't mean to be. 3 women and 3 men. The 3 men were 2 Democrats and a Republican, 2 very young gentlemen. Curtis Jones, I don't think is that old, a black gentleman. But you had a black, you had a Hispanic, you had a white male, you had 2 Democrats and a Republican, and they got nothing between the 3 of them. And they got in that race, out of the 10,000 people that cast votes, I think they got less than 500 votes total, combined total.
Curtis got 736, but they were
Did he get that? Oh yeah, he got 9%.
Yes.
So
yes.
What were the other 2?
Alex had 332, Mr. Lopez had 574, and Curtis Jones had 736. But 82% of those votes went to the 3 women. And so Barbara Feitos of the 3 raised the least. I think she really tried to think that because she was a former county commissioner, she ran against Mayor Gwynn in the last election. I think she thought she would have a lot of name recognition.
And she did. And I totally believe since she didn't have any money, that's how she did as well as she did. She does have name recognition. Barbara is very involved in a lot of county organizations for the arts. She was the executive director of that foundation for a long time. She's a very active member of Blessed Trinity, my church. You know, those are all large components. I tell people all the time, you know, I won because of the Catholics, the bowlers, and the drinkers. So, you know, and those are all your middle class demographic, and, you know, so that's a big voting base.
It is. You know, in the District 5, you know, my heart went out to Greg Steen. He is just a great guy. Jim is as well.
They both sat here and they both said, you know, either one of them will be great for the city, and that is true. It's just, this boils down to how to run a campaign.
Absolutely. And
people who are novices and that get in, that have never done it and never served, it's a different animal. And the mayor and I had a conversation 2 days ago about someone who called him, and she was claiming how much political knowledge she had, and he said, "Have you ever served?" And she said, "No." And there's a huge difference of the political knowledge when you've either served or you've ran a race before. And this is a very good situation because Greg Steen spent a lot of money. He did not spend it effectively. And he aligned himself with other candidates, which it caused Barry Mansfield a ton of problems. Barry should have won. Barry should have won by a way bigger margin than he did, but he was the recipient of negative attack pieces because of somebody he linked himself to, the Schlichter kid. And it's the same thing with Greg. He linked himself to the Schlichter kid, and look what happened. You just don't link yourself to another politician. And that was what the mayor was explaining to this person when she was carrying on that he was helping another candidate. He's the mayor, and just because he's somewhere and all the other candidates show up, that is out of his control. And as the elected official, you can't say, oh, you can't come.
Right.
You can't be here. I'm on the downtown square, so don't show up. You can't do that. And we've talked about campaign etiquette on this show, and in the next few weeks, we're going to talk about it a lot more, because that's what caused a lot of these people to lose, that did lose.
Well, and I was at Mayor Gwynn's event at Bank Street Friday night, and it had been on social media, had been out there for, a couple of weeks, and 24 hours before the event, Manal Fakori's campaign did a Get Out the Vote event. And so I counted, there were like 12 people there, but one of them had a bullhorn. And so they did that whole Antifa feel thing. They were like, yo, he's got to go. And were pacing around, and it's like, that's tacky.
Yeah.
It's tacky.
We touched briefly on some things that are done that are rude. There was a lot of, if you are on social media, there was a lot of chatter about signs being stolen. It happens all the time. I'm one of those people that believe that kids steal signs. They don't know what they're doing and just playing around. The wind, the road crews, the lawn
when they
maintenance
mow.
people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of avenues, but the candidates get so upset when their signs are stolen. Now, in saying that, it came back to me last night that some other campaigns were saying that, oh, it's just common knowledge that the opponent steals their opponent's sign. No, it's not. It's friggin' rude, and it needs to stop. And that, that's somebody who might still be going into the runoff. So I'm going to continue to talk about that since I have verification, and I will name names on that. That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. It's no different than putting one sign in front of the other. Have some respect. Have some respect. I had an opportunity to put a sign up for a candidate that her opponent was also on the business property. The opponent had put up a big sign already. They didn't want another big sign, but they were willing to allow both of them to be there. I could have went there and put a bunch of little signs right under hers. Did I do that? No. I put them across the street, across the driveway, out of respect. Sierra Jurgens was moving one of her husband, Rusty Jurgens' signs yesterday at a church because she felt like it was blocking the view of Ty Schlichter's sign. Ty's wife came up and confronted her. Sierra said, I don't want to be rude. I didn't want you to think that I was putting the sign in front of him. So there's sign etiquette as well, and it's time that people start respecting each other.
And a lot of times
there's no reason for this kind of nastiness.
A lot of times I think it's the supporters, the campaign supporters that do it. I can remember on 8th, where 8th Avenue comes into 40, there's a kind of vacant lot across from Walgreens, and during the Chris Blair, Dan Coon, they both had 4x8s there, and it's like they did leapfrog in front of each other all the time. It's just, I always, when I am putting somebody's sign out wherever, I'm like you see where it won't block. It's
Yeah, you need to, what you need to be, the courtesy needs to be whether or not I'm blocking the view of traffic, and and then just be, okay, there a lot of people like to ride the fence and they want to support both candidates, their businesses. It's probably wise. Most businesses shouldn't put any signs up, to be honest. They shouldn't take a stand like that. I had an issue with a local title company that had some signs up for somebody I didn't really care for. As a realtor, I was like, I'm not doing business with them. Why would I? I mean, if my money's going to fund that, and that, that goes for organizations. So one of the people that I do a lot of work for, he doesn't believe in it, and he's right. He says, I'm not political like that. I'm not going to take a stand, and I don't want it to affect my business. And that's how it should be.
We owned Earl's Tent and Signs downtown Magnolia for, almost 20 years. Earl never would let people put signs out. It's like, and then when we were candidates, we're like, oh, come on. But, we also understand that. Any candidate, and going back to a candidate attaching themselves to someone else's campaign, you do get some cred from their supporters, but the people that aren't supporting them, now they don't like you. And so you've got to run your own campaign, you've got to do your own thing, and this race brought that. I mean, it shined a spotlight
We
on that.
didn't think we were going to have much to talk about. We have weeks of fodder to talk about after this race, so it's good. But good, Sheila. I think that's a good start for today. I did want to give 2 shout outs. I messed up all of my equipment the other day, so I wasn't able to finish interviewing all the candidates, but I want to give a shout out to Royce Chamberlain of Royce Media, who came in here and fixed me up for now and waiting on some new equipment. So there's that. And I also want to give a big shout out to Captain Anthony Ortez of Ocala Fire Rescue, who cutely last night told me that he watches this show. He was probably the only person to admit that, and I was like, why? And he said it had a podcast feel and he enjoyed the conversation of it, and that's why I was thinking about coffee and conversation, because that's exactly what my goal is, that I just conversate with people to get the real story, and no need to badger people and ask hard, difficult questions and put them on the spot, but just, discuss things so people can maybe learn some stuff.
And I want to give a shout out to each and every candidate and their supporters. It is grueling running a campaign, and to want to step up and serve, because again, this job, the city council and the mayor, it doesn't pay a lot, a couple $100, $300, whatever it is. And so to all the candidates, thank you for stepping up. It's tough. It's tough. Campaigning is grueling, and just so thank you to all the candidates, to all the voters. Thank you for voting. As Sue has said earlier, it is your civic duty. Also, if you do not vote, you do not get to complain. That's the
right.
rule.
That is right. So I don't know how to turn this off. Thought I was doing it by my phone, so I don't. So I'm going to scoot around. So Sheila, you just wrap it up there.
Absolutely. Thanks for tuning in.
And
we will share it.
Maybe one day I'm going to learn how to run my own equipment.
We'll share it soon.
That'll be
Thanks,
fun.
guys.
Okay.